All right. So in the entrepreneurship module, we don't play games. We do real business. Okay. All right. So. So before I share with you the details of the entrepreneurship module at SUDD, which is a EPD elective 3111, I want to ask you a question. And those people on the slides, what do they share in common? Okay. Oh, man? Oh, my goodness. What else? That's not my answer. All smile, right? Entrepreneurs smile.
They're entrepreneurs?
They're all entrepreneurs, right? What else?
It's all about technology.
They're all engineers who are entrepreneurs. And what about those people on the slide? What do they share in common? Okay, one more dimension in common. So they're all SUDD graduates who are engineers and also entrepreneurs. Okay, that's the purpose of this course. We want to educate engineers who are entrepreneurs. But what's entrepreneurship, right? So before I started to develop this course, I had this question for myself that will require for me to formulate the learning objectives, right? When people ask me what I teach, the hypothesize that I teach business, where I teach marketing or sales, and those traditional topics put together as a business subject, right? Actually, so the course was formulated at a very more abstract way. So I built the course, our learning objectives on two fundamental understandings about entrepreneurship. One is the definition of entrepreneurship from Howard Stephenson, who set up the entrepreneurship division at Harvard Business School in the 70s. He considered entrepreneurship the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources we currently control. That means we're faced with resource constraints. If we have sufficient resources, we're managing, we're optimizing, we're not venturing. So resource constraint defines entrepreneurship context. And Eric Ries, who wrote the popular book In Startup a few years back, and he considered a startup institution to create something under extreme uncertainty. And entrepreneurship is a discipline to deal with such uncertain situations. So that another keyword comes out, which is uncertainty. So entrepreneurship context is extremely uncertain. So we set up those contexts for our students to learn about entrepreneurship. And my learning objectives for students are for them to learn about the system of social technical factors that forces that will affect the entrepreneurship process, and the scientific principles for making holistic product, process, and people decisions under uncertainty and the resource constraints. So they're supposed to be holistic. They're not just doing engineering, not just doing business. They're not just doing PR marketing. They must be holistic. Entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. We hope they become entrepreneurs. But the foundation is that they're engineers. So they have to work on products, people, and process at the same time. Then co-design products, process, and people at the same time under uncertainty and resource constraints. So I consider my job is to create such a context, uncertain and resource constraint context for them to learn about entrepreneurship. And here's the strategy of learning. We combine thinking, reading, and experiencing at the same time. They synthesize three elements of activities to develop their own understanding and approaches to entrepreneurship. So reading and thinking are done very well in traditional engineering courses, but experiential learning for entrepreneurship course has been very vague, and it's unclear how we provide experiential learning opportunities for our students in an academic module about entrepreneurship. In a business school entrepreneurship course, you will discuss Harvard Business School cases, right? So it's a fun. Is that enough? And students are asked to present their ideas or develop or write a business plan and pitch the business plan to VCs. That's a traditional way of providing a little bit of experiences to students in traditional business school entrepreneurship courses. At SUDD, our students do a lot of design projects, and we ask them to go out and do survey with potential users and to market research, try to be more entrepreneurial as much as possible. Is that sufficient? So we do have the advantage at SUD. Our students are hands-on. They're building innovative products. They have a lot of ideas. But the challenge for entrepreneurship learning is that our students cannot go out of campus to link their innovation with external parties, and including users, suppliers, development partners, manufacturing people, companies in the manufacturing segments of the value chain, investors, government agencies, and media. So they have wonderful ideas. They have so innovative design projects, but they're disconnected. with the real world of business. And the reason is they're busy. They are taking a lot of courses. And even though when they have time, they don't have the professional connections and channels to link up with the external parties, which are important to realize their entrepreneurial vision. Right, so that's why most of the time our projects will end up being exhibited in the campus center. That's it, right? So I realized recently, in the past few years, crowdfunding on internet has provided a way for us to link our design projects to the external world. Right, when in my first few years of experience of teaching entrepreneurship, well, I wouldn't say teaching, helping students learn about entrepreneurship, I realized the key challenge is the linkage between their classroom activities and the outside world for entrepreneurship related to their vision. And crowdfunding potentially provides a technology for our students to link with the external parties to develop empathy with those stakeholders. Stakeholders important for realizing their innovative vision. Crowdfunding, so what's crowdfunding? Maybe some of you are not familiar with this concept, so I'll give you a very brief intro. So crowdfunding projects are financially supported through small contributions from a large crowd of people, typically from internet. Each person only contribute a little bit, but put together that's a lot of support. And there are different kinds of crowdfunding, and don't get confused. There are crowdfunding projects for equity investment, for lending, for donation. We're not doing those. We're doing reward-based crowdfunding campaigns. In reward-based crowdfunding campaign, our students will evangelize their prototypes, their ideas online, and in order to collect advanced payments from early adopters and backers. With that funding, they move further into the product development and manufacturing process and deliver the products a few months later as a rewards. So basically, the crowd backers will provide a small chunk of money to get a reward, which is the design and product from the creators. In this case, our students, we really focus on reward-based crowdfunding campaigns here. So reward-based crowdfunding campaigns are important, creating value for creators or designers in different ways. For example, fundraising, you get the money, advance payment to continue your development and manufacturing. This is important for hardware project, which requires a lot of capital and support, and potentially can build a community online and offline with the users and also all kinds of supporters in the ecosystem of your idea, and also validate market demands for novel concepts from the crowd bikers. So in our design project, as you did, we ask students to do surveys, questionnaires, but they normally do those with their classmates and roommates. So they get false positive feedback about their designs. If they go out to the streets to survey, they normally get a false negative feedback because the mainstream people normally are not tolerate of a crappy prototype or novel ideas. But the crowd backers on the internet crowdfunding platforms are special kinds of animals. They're early adopters who are tolerant of a poor quality and appreciate novelty. They just want to enjoy being the first users. The status of being first users of innovation. They are always willing to give you feedback, want to be involved in the design process, be the first users of innovation. So engagement with them will provide very valuable feedback and comments and suggestions, especially those people give you a little bit of money in your pocket before you have the product delivered to them. That means they're really, really interested in your idea, in your concept. So their feedback will be more valuable than the feedback you get from the mainstream. So I want to give you an example about how crowdfunding makes sense for tech entrepreneurship. And Pebble smartwatch, it has been a very popular product and company in the past few years, but it was started as a small email notification device in 2009. And with some funding from Y Combinator and angel investors. But the company failed to raise funding for mass production. It's a hardware project because of vague customer needs. Venture capitalists were not interested in such project without clear market demands. So this guy put the project on Kickstarter with a goal or funding goal 100K. But it turns out he raised 10 million on Kickstarter, and that Kickstarter campaign success also attracted additional VC funding because of the market validation of the concept. Actually, Microsoft Dell had some smartwatch projects much earlier than Pebble established companies, but this concept was not validated until Pebble did it online. So the concept of smartwatch was first validated online through crowdfunding. So that shows the value of crowdfunding for concept validation for entrepreneurs. and also fundraising, everything together. Actually, our SUD students have been using crowdfunding to evangelize their design project and get traction for their projects. The famous SUD RIM project actually was started with a Kickstarter project back in Boston when our students were visiting MIT. They launched this Kickstarter campaign. They raised about 20,000 USD. They got traction, came back and continued this project. This project has evolved for a few years, and not just RIM now, also we-spent, which I'm learning from the same team. So Kickstarter provided the kickstarting point for that group of entrepreneurial students, a lot of learning experiences. And this power strip, a bagel-shaped power strip, was designed by ESD student Asst. Jianxi, just graduated. It raised more than 400,000 SGD from close to 10,000 bikers. So that data records validated her design. And she just graduated. She's not looking for a job. She's recruiting our SGD student to work with her for the next innovation. So let's come back to the entrepreneurship module. So we use crowdfunding, not for funding, right? We use it as a learning tool, as a technology for our students to link up with the external stakeholders relevant to their business, to their vision. And so we're not going out to discover early adopters and stakeholders. We're here, we put our innovation ideas online and and allow the early adopters and stakeholders to discover us using internet. And doing a crowdfunding campaign also provides an entrepreneurial context, which is very practical, involving dollars, right? So, and also very holistic, not just developing a prototype, but also doing marketing, sales, and evangelizing your ideas, social media marketing, working with the manufacturers. Very well-rounded experience. And our students have to do it in 2 months. Normally, entrepreneurs will spend a year to prepare for a crowdfunding campaign, but in this module, they have to do it in 2 weeks. I purposefully created such a constant time period for them to learn about lean startup. They have to learn about how to rapidly prototype and to do very frugal marketing to promote their visions, really working as entrepreneurs that bootstrap. They had to learn about bootstrap under such uncertain and resource constraint context. And potentially we can, so such experience will lead then to a lot of external engagements for experiential learning opportunities. In any case, funding is not a goal for this course, for using crowdfunding campaign. In this course, learning is our goal. So crowdfunding campaign intensifies the learning of our students. But it's not all about this course, it's just part of the course. So in the beginning of this course, the students will build a team. Then they prototype, they launch, they put their prototype ideas online, launch a crowdfunding campaign, running the campaign for about a month. They get some track records, either feedback or dollars. And with that track record, they pitch better to investors in the final week of the semester. To support the project-based experiential learning, we also designed, I give lectures about the topics relevant to the activities they're doing at different stages of project learning. And we also invite the practitioners to come to the classroom in panels to share about, to discuss the same topics that I lectured and they're working on a different stage. At the same time, they also read Harvard Business School cases offline, outside the classroom. They analyze those cases. So they learn from the cases, they learn from me, they learn from the practitioners, they learn from their own experiences and on specific topics at different stages of learning. Sometimes they found the views from the practitioners and the lectures of mine, and their experiences are very different. So that kind of conflicts will allow them to develop their own original understanding about entrepreneurship and approaches to venture. So I want to give you some case studies of how our students have benefited from doing crowdfunding campaign. Tushar, sous chef, right? So he started with the egg breaker idea, entrepreneurship module 2 years ago. It didn't technically work. They prototyped for 2 weeks. They found technical feasibility didn't exist. So they pivoted to ingredient dispenser. And so that was easy. They put it on. Actually, they were very reluctant to do the Indiegogo campaign because they saw their prototype is crappy. It's a shame. They're going to fail. They will lose their, destroy their image, something like that. They were very concerned. I just pushed them to put it online, and not for success, but for learning. And later on, they only raised a little bit of money, not a successful campaign, but they had a lot of learning. They learned that the 26 people who back then, half of them are Indian. And right, they learned this is actually an Indian device about users, right, empathetic about users. He was invited to talk about crowdfunding on TV, newspapers. He got a lot, so this thing got a lot of public press coverage, PR. And it became a very important stepstone for him to continue to build his next project, next company, and grow his company. So in this case, he developed very good empathy about the users and engagement with media and the investors. He pitched much better with to external investors with the intensified activity required to produce this crowdfunding campaign. Another project, FM Innovation, right, the electrical scooter project. These two students were very reluctant to do the campaign. They thought their prototype is crappy. They couldn't deliver. We know that. And so I still pushed them to put the stuff online. And then I told them it's for learning, not for money. Don't worry. And so they put it online, zero biker. They backed themselves. But they got a lot of exposure. They did this. So the campaign preparation allowed them to do the engagement offline much better. And then they were invited to a lot of events, as innovators, mobility devices covered by the press. And they also pitched better to in the innovation context and outside the classroom. So that has become a stepstone of learning for this thing as well. So in this case, very interesting. So this guy didn't have any biker, but so one day they emailed me and said, Prof, we got an email from a US-based mobility device company ordering 30 units. The guy said he doesn't want to back us online. He wanted to order 30 units immediately. The students were scared. That fact of being scared is a wonderful learning experience, in my view. And they asked me to tell them how to reply that email. Anyhow, so later on, they got another email from a German supply chain company requesting collaboration with them to distribute this device in Europe. And the guy wanted to sign an MOU with them. They asked me, what is the MOU? So wonderful learning experience. They also got an email from an Italian designer. The Italian designer actually made a comment on their web and basically saying, your design is crappy, it doesn't look great, but I can help you, can we collaborate? Right. So through doing that crowdfunding campaign, they were linked up with a lot of external stakeholders. Designers, suppliers, users, and media coverage, and they were also approached by government agencies about mobility devices, and also investors. I introduced them to some of the incubators outside SUDD. Wonderful learning, holistic learning. And Zybike project, some of you probably noticed this project. It was doing a bicycle sharing system 2.5 years ago, more advanced than Ofo, the Chinese company, 2.5 years ago. Right, so this team actually enjoyed the crowdfunding experience. To prepare for the campaign, they actually launched a real fleet between SUDD and the CCP 2.5 years ago. Think about it, before Ofo came to Singapore, right? It was more advanced than Ofo that came to Singapore later. And they built a community, hundreds of users. I was one of the users. They collected a lot of feedback and they reported the learning on the campaign. And they were approached by JTC and to potentially install their system in some of the lines that JTC has developed, and they were heavily covered by the local and international media. They had a lot of exposure and connection engagement with external parties, investors, government agencies, media, and users. This project, Mobilirize, some of you probably also noticed, and they had a very, very humble campaign, only asking for 5,000. They only found one person from the US who they don't know actually backed their company. They had a lot of discussions with that person in the US to learn about the actual demands and needs. And they were also covered by local media. They pitched better to the local organizations and hospitals about their project with the campaign pushing their activities. So they pitched better with the preparation from the campaign project. They pitched better in external innovation contest. They became a winner of Create for Good contest later on. So in this case, I found they developed very good empathy with users, media, government agency, development, manufacturing partner. I actually introduced them to work with my friend at Hacks hardware incubator based in Shenzhen to improve their prototype. They had a lot of practical learning from the practitioners, put point of view. Patch project, actually my favorite, they raised about 30,000 SGD for their idea. Smart strap, their idea is, so one of the students had a lot of luxury watches, but he wanted to have a smart list, but not smart watch, to replace his analog watch. So he designed this smart strap to replace the straps of his luxury watches. Right? They put the ideas on, and they prototyped actually 3 weeks. Rapid prototyping was very good. Our students are really good at that. They raised 30,000 online. And they went to Shenzhen, and they get a lot of manufacturing quotes about the cost for certain units of manufacturing. And they also got quotes from local companies. And in order to set up the funding goal, they had to get quotes from manufacturing companies. They had a wonderful learning from the feedbacks of the backers on Kickstarter. And this team did a fabulous job of engaging external media to cover that. So they were reported by a lot of international local media, heavily covered. They had a wonderful experience. And so in this case, they developed good empathy with the media, users, supplier, manufacturing partners. And I briefly mentioned that our students connected with the manufacturers and in China, actually, because they need to set up the funding goal. In order to do that, they have to estimate the cost of a manufacturing very well. They have to work with the manufacturers. If their campaigns become successful one, they have to deliver the product. They have to work with the manufacturers. So we actually flew our students to Shenzhen, China to identify potential manufacturer partners and get manufacturing quotes in the recess week before they launched the campaign, 2 weeks before they launched the campaign. So Shenzhen is actually only 3 hours and a half from Singapore, right? It's right now probably the second most vibrant entrepreneurial place in the world after Silicon Valley. And especially when we do hardware projects, Silicon Valley is not the right place to go, right? And Shenzhen is the best place in the world to visit, to engage, to work with. So this place used to be considered a manufacturing place, but the manufacturing ecosystem actually has nurtured a lot of innovative companies in China. So this is a list of examples. So we actually work very closely with the HAX, Hardware Acceleration Program, and to help our students in terms of their hardware design project. HAX is the largest hardware accelerator in the world. It was started in Silicon Valley with a bunch of American venture capitalists, and they used to be a Silicon Valley prototyping there. They found it very slow, so they decided to move to Shenzhen and to get on the ground, just on top of the shop. Their Shenzhen incubating space is right on top of this electronics shopping mall. Thousands of stores of components and parts. They're on top of it. If they're startups that want something, they just go downstairs and grab the components and parts. And sometimes they got inspired about the gadgets they found downstairs. They come back to revise their ideas. And that has been a rewarding experience for them. And so our students visit HAX and pitch to their investors and entrepreneurs at HAX and get introductions to those suppliers downstairs to their incubation space. So our students also visit contract manufacturers in the recess week in Shenzhen and to learn about the manufacturing process. This company, AQAS, is very famous for low volume and high mix manufacturing. They work with a lot of Kickstarter teams and entrepreneur startups. And this is a world maker, and these guys are giving a design for manufacturing and sales pitch. I didn't call that lecture, it's a sales pitch, because those companies consider our students as potential clients because they are doing crowdfunding campaigns. And they didn't look at our students as students from university doing a plant tour or sightseeing. They're potential clients. So they will share more practical information with our students, offering better learning experience. Okay, so we have actually developed a network of international partners to support the learning of our students, and they're engaged because I told them our students are doing crowdfunding campaigns, real business, right? And our students this year, this class, 13 of them are boarding at 2 p.m. this afternoon to Shenzhen, and this is the recess way to visit this list of 5 companies another year. And so the whole purpose of doing crowdfunding campaign and for the entrepreneurship class is to push our students to get out of this building, get out of the campus, and to engage their projects with external stakeholders for their vision, for their innovation, so they can develop better connections and empathy and learning with the stakeholders in a real-world context. This has been done with wonderful support from SUDD. Think about that. So prototyping, developing a prototype in 8 weeks weeks and launch a Kickstarter campaign, and requires a lot of support, prototyping, design, funding, all kind of support. Thanks to the design prototyping ecosystem and the 4D design curriculum at SUDD, our students have been very proficient doing that. And they leverage projects from other design courses they took at SUD before Term 6, and they're very comfortable going to Fab Lab to do rapid prototyping. So I haven't seen problems getting a prototype for a crowdfunding campaign in 8 weeks of time. And the course will offer a lot of learning to support their campaigns, including my lectures and the sharing from the practitioners and the companies in Shenzhen, also offering technical support for our projects. Throughout the campaigns, they will get a lot of feedback from the backers online and also the company's potential stakeholders from all over the world, not just in Singapore. And with the improved maturity of the projects from the campaign, from running the crowdfunding campaign, and some of them will continue to roll into IDC projects, the incubator, external incubator, and internal incubator entrepreneurship capstones. I actually introduced several group projects to external incubators, so they move there after the class. So hopefully what I've been doing intensified the experiential learning experience of our students in an entrepreneurship module, and the core of this strategy is the crowdfunding campaign. So my motivation is very simple, produce engineers who are entrepreneurs. Stanford has done a fabulous job of producing a lot of companies entrepreneurs, and top engineering universities in the world are also top producers of entrepreneurs. And I hope 13111 has made a very small contribution to SUDD's mission to educate engineers for entrepreneurship. And I did a very simple anonymous survey before the class in the introduction session about their career attentions. So I asked them to choose among 4 options. One is, the first one to the left is to start a company upon graduation immediately. And the one to the right is do not foresee being an entrepreneur. Okay, so the second one is thinking about starting a company. The third one is thinking about a company later on, after getting some experience from large company experiences. So before the class, we found the distribution in the school to the right. I mean, most of the students have not really thought about entrepreneurship as a career option. So I did this survey again after the class, end of the semester. I found the distribution is more skewed to the left. And fewer students do not foresee being an entrepreneur. A lot of them have started to think about it, right? And some of them, a lot more of them actually have identified the directions to start a company right upon education. The examples, for example, FOM Innovation Scooter, 2 students who designed the scooters, and they told me before the class they didn't want to start a company upon graduation. They never thought about that. They just want to have some fun from the entrepreneurship class. But with the class, their activities were intensified, and they were better prepared. They actually raised a lot of grants with the preparation from the class. They got grants, they got money, right? So they became a feasible career option for them. So they actually started a company upon graduation. So they moved from the rightmost column to the leftmost. That's it. Entrepreneurship module at SUDD. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. That was very inspiring and actually quite humbling to see what our SUDD students are doing and what your course 30.111 is doing. Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you. I thought that was fantastic. I just want to know, sorry for your next bit, but what about issues of liability in the case of non-delivery?
Liability in terms of
non-delivery of the product after they've done the crowdsourcing.
You know, based on the statistics from Kickstarter, 85% of the projects will fail. Okay, every year we launch 10 projects, about 10 to 15. So most likely we only get 2 projects successful, right? And they can cancel if they're not ready to deliver. So they can cancel the project after the campaign becomes a successful one, if they're not confident. So we haven't reached that stage of being worried about liability and being unable to deliver yet. We hope we can get into that situation so our students will learn more.
Learning from failure, that's a wonderful concept too, right?
Yeah.
This is actually someone from NIE had, has something about learning from failure. Yeah.
Jianxi, don't go. I just want to share you a very personal experience. I launched this class in term 6, and he negotiated with me. He said, too late. Term 6 is our junior year, which is going to the 4th year. Because by then, I think student is almost graduating, no time to start a company. But eventually, I think right now is the right choice, in my view.
Right timing,
okay,
yes.
I hope you agree with me.
You're right.
The reason is very simple, because they built all the foundation, they've gone through 1D, 2D, a lot of design experience, hands-on, you just mentioned. Second thing is that they are more ready to step out of the comfort zone, to do something they feel like, just now the chart show, right? On the left-hand side, move to the right-hand side. And more importantly, right now, this has become a signature course, because we just launched a STEP program, SUD, Technology, Entrepreneurship, and this is one of the required courses. And in fact, Jianxi is actually the co-program director for this course right now. He's going to fly students actually very soon to California to do the Stanford design course or entrepreneurship course, followed by internship coming back to Asia. So you can see actually all these are gaining a lot of experience. And why he is here to talk, I think it's a very different perspective. I just realized that maybe we should use a crowdfunding for our design or maybe our pedagogy innovation, right? You go on the crowd and maybe they are good idea. And in fact, one student came and talked to me, very, very entrepreneurial. He himself told me that he felt a lot of students come to the pillar year, do not know how to choose elective for their own interests. And you want to start a program like this, saying that design, automatic, if you have interest to go to, let's say, energy track, what are the courses you can take? So I told him that eventually you can get out of the university and become maybe, a startup company, helping students to learn better, to choose better. So the point to make here is that I think we learn from each other, and today you hear a different perspective from Jianxi. Hopefully that crowdfunding concept can extend to other, maybe, I don't know, our teaching philosophies as well, okay? Any question for Jianxi? I think there are a lot of successful stories that try to grab him. And he's an entrepreneur, MIT trained, and I'm glad that actually I got him here, actually. Any more? So Chinese say, 卧虎藏龙. There are a lot of experts here. So talk to them, and people like Oka, even today talk about what, Jianxi, right? He just joined us, I think, a year ago, and today he already got a project to present to you. So I'm actually, I get excited by all these very passionate instructors here. So without further ado, maybe the next 1 hour will be lunch, is it?
Yes.
So shall I pass it back to you just to let you get some logistic time after lunch, right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Jianxi, and thanks, Kin Leong.